Good lead into Colin Lyne's section on the relative merits of these different engines. So would you like to tell us a bit about that, please, Colin?
Yeah. When I first brought a computer in 2006, I knew absolutely nothing about computers at all. The first one I brought was Fritz 6 because I was told by Andrew Martin that he'd played it a lot of times at 5-minute chess and he'd beaten it 11 times. So I asked him, how many times has it beaten you? And he said about 60. That was Fritz 6. If anybody hasn't got any of these engines, even if you buy one of the not very good ones, they'll probably still be a lot better than you are. And over the years, I started to get, I gradually upgraded and I started to get ones like Fritz 11. I did notice with Fritz that it had a tendency to assess positions which I thought were a bit over the top. There's a certain variation in the French winner, and it's quite good for testing engines actually, where white brings his queen out to g4 and then proceeds to nick black's pawns on the king side. And black gets lots of counterplay. And I'd noticed that in the early days, Fritz used to say that this was almost winning for white. Well, I knew it couldn't be winning for white because Victor Korchnoi used to play it for black. So, and he even did quite well with it. He beat Boris Spassky playing it as black. So I knew that couldn't be the case. But I've noticed with engines more recently that they don't do that. And now they assess it as about equals, which is rather interesting. It shows that they are starting to understand much better the different merits of things, and that because you're a pawn down, you're not necessarily losing. No, I don't actually go on live chess. You go on live chess quite a lot, but when I went on live chess, I found I had some problems with it. First of all, I didn't like the board. It was much smaller than the one on play chess, but I also found that...
Colin, can I interrupt a sec? What are we supposed to be looking at?
Sorry?
What should we be looking at?
Well, nothing particularly.
Okay.
So I haven't actually clicked onto anything yet.
Okay.
Okay, you've probably just got Zoom phone is expanding your reach. Is that what you've got? Because that's what I've got. Okay. Well, what tended to happen when I was on live chess, I think I must have had a slow connection or everything, because if I played all my moves straight away at the start and so did the opponent, I always found I was behind on the clock. So I started going on to play chess. And if I click on play chess, I think you should be able to see it.
Yeah, you can see that.
Can you see it?
Yeah.
Audio.
Now, one of the interesting things about play chess is that you can go on this thing. This today shows all the games that were actually played. I don't know how many of you saw the games that were played today in Chess 24. Did anybody see them besides me?
Yep. Some of them, yeah.
Yep. So
you saw it. Did you see the Caruana game, for instance?
Yeah.
This was the final position in the Caruana game. And it shows you all these sort of things. And I mean, so just like other sites, you can go on and play, but I particularly like play chess. You can actually play for nothing in the cafe. I don't know whether you have to pay for live chess. Do you have to pay for live chess, or you just go on there?
That's free.
It's free. Yeah, well, it's the same as you go in the cafe. If you go in the main room, you're supposed to play for it. But I've noticed that recently I've been getting into the main room and I haven't been paying for it. So I don't know.
Careful, Colin, this is going to be
why there. That would be, maybe you ought to edit that bit out.
Have you upgraded ChessBase recently, Colin?
Sorry?
Have you upgraded ChessBase recently? Because sometimes it seems you get a year's membership of Play Chess. Premium membership of Play Chess when you upgrade or something.
Yeah.
Or Fritz. Yeah.
Well, something else they do. When I had a ChessBase, eventually ChessBase 11 ran out, and they no longer put it in that. But I didn't notice when I was in the main hall that they were loading my games into my ChessBase, and I thought that was quite good because it allowed me. One day I would go on it and play, and I think this is quite a good system to use. Actually, is to go on and play a whole load of games one day, and then, you know, if you've got a ChessBase, it'll automatically load it into that ChessBase, and you can go on another day with a Kibitzer, and you can actually go through the games, and you can try to learn from them, you know. And because I ain't got a ChessBase now, I sometimes have to write them down. Sometimes they actually do some analysis of the games, but I don't know why. They only do it sometimes. They don't always do it. But if they don't do it, and I'm particularly interested in a game, I will write it down myself. and then I will go for it. And I think that's actually quite a good way of learning, because Paul was saying that he gets lots of promising positions. Well, so do I, but I get lots of promising positions because my opening theory is normally as good as anybody's. But it's what happens after the opening theory runs out. And that's where you really often want to strengthen your game, because I don't know about you, but I find that most games are actually won in the middle game. Far more games of mine are won or lost in the middle game than the opening or the ending, really. Often you don't even get to an ending. And obviously that's the area in which I need to improve much. And I think that's probably true of most of us, that we need to improve most in that area. But the play chess is quite interesting. I've noticed with it that if you play in the cafe, you will get a far higher grade. So playing in the cafe is quite good for your ego. Playing in the cafe, I got one grade of 2280, I think it was, and I beat a guy who was 2550. But in the main room, the highest I've managed to get up to is 1968. I did tell Neil Bridge that once, and he said to me, well, I've only been over 2000 once in the main room. So I felt quite a bit better once he told me that. But it is an interesting site to go on, play chess. I've noticed that nobody's mentioned that tonight, but I think it's quite good. And it is very tough. There are very strong players who play there. David Howe and Nigel Short, I've noticed, both play in there quite often. Nigel Short, a while back, I noticed he had about 31,000 games that he played in there. And you can play at lots of different time limits. So it is good. But
so, Colin, what can you tell us about the different engines?
Yeah, I was just going to say about that. I've noticed over the years, like I said, Fritz, that's now up to Fritz 17. So obviously it's a lot better than the ones that I had. But the best one I've got at the moment is called Stockfish 12. I got a feeling that was the one that played a left 0, wasn't it? Was it Stockfish 11 or 12? And that one is actually very strong. I've also noticed that I've also got Komodo and Houdini and Fritz. And I've noticed that Stockfish seems to analyze far faster. There's a thing called depth that it shows you the depth, and you can see how fast it's actually analyzing. And it gets to a depth of about 20 in a few seconds, and none of the others seem to be able to do that. I've noticed they take much longer to get to that depth. So it's quite good. It means you don't have to wait very long before it probably comes up with a really good move. So Stockfish 12 is the best computer that I've actually got at the moment. So I would recommend that to you if you particularly want a really good one. But if you're somebody who's just starting out in these things, then almost any of them will do you, because the fact is they're all.
Do you find they deliver different results as well as at different speeds?
Yeah, you do. Stockfish 12, I've noticed sometimes it will give a certain position as clearly winning, say for white. And Fritz and Komodo won't agree with it, and they'll just give it as, I mean, say normally it has to be about 0.7 better to consider it's winning. Otherwise, it just considers one side's got a slight advantage. I noticed that. And the others will just give a slight advantage, and Stockfish will say it's about 2.4 better, clearly winning. But if you then play them off against each other and keep on showing Fritz's best moves against Stockfish's best moves, you'll find that sooner or later, Fritz and Komodo will change their minds and come to the conclusion that Stockfish was right all the time, which I find rather interesting. And it nearly always turns out that way. It's very rarely that it's ever Stockfish that changes its mind. So it shows that Stockfish is the strongest computer that I've got. But I really started off in computers right from absolutely zero, knowing nothing about them whatsoever. And I'm sure a lot of you still know a lot more about them than what I do. Yeah, and that's about it, really.
Anyone else get any comments about the relative merits, or do you those that use several of them, do you concur with Colin's conclusion there?
I think Stockfish exaggerates the evaluation.
Well, so far, Stockfish has turned out to be the one that's normally right. Stockfish 12, I got a feeling
it also fluctuates depending who's.
Oh yeah, it does that.
It depends.
You have to leave them on for a while sometimes. Yeah.
It can swing massively depending whose move it is. Even though, I mean, what you have to do is lead it by the hand. What you really need to be able to do is go down a path that you think is correct, that it might not find. So sometimes you might know actually the analysis of a position and it doesn't. And it might not find the best move. And actually, if you show it what it is, eventually it might work it out for itself, you know.
Yeah, that does
So,
happen.
Um,
I looked at position a while back.
particularly closed positions, but certainly open positions. Most engines agree with each other. But the more closed the position is, the less agreement there is.
Well, sometimes you can analyze certain positions with it and it won't know the way to win. And it will show one side is clearly better, but then it won't show a winning path. It will just wander around and around, basically doing nothing. And you think to yourself, well, in this position, White has to sacrifice the exchange, otherwise he's never going to win it. And so sometimes you have to sort of overrule the computer. There's just certain positions that computers still can't seem to win sometimes. So for all their strength, they are still weak in certain areas. I have noticed that about them.
Right. Thanks for that, Colin.